Hello, everybody. Welcome to Random Offense. I'm your host, Ethan Strauss. I'm joined by the greatest sports media reporter in the world, that is Ryan Glass-Steagall of Front Office Sports. We may or may not have been arguing over where K-pop Demon Hunters exists in the canon of animated musicals, but that's neither here nor there. We might get to it, but we've got a wonderful smorgasbord, a wonderful docket, including and especially the subject of whether ESPN is going to be knocked off its throne, whether it shall be toppled, whether it will no longer be the king of live sports TV rights. Let's get Ryan on here because I can't imagine it in my millennial brain, Ryan, that such a thing could happen. ESPN. It's like how these brands, Xerox is making a copy or whatever else. I can't imagine a world in which the live sports I watch, it's mostly through some other portal, but you've written a story that this perhaps is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so we gotta take it a step back a little bit. Recently, David Ellison, the son of Oracle founder Larry Ellison, completed the merger of Paramount and Skydance. He had been at Skydance and they purchased Paramount. And now, this week, Paramount formalized a bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. So they're competing against Comcast and Netflix to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. But it looks like Paramount is the only company of the three that wants the WBD sports assets, which are on like the cable TV networks like TNT and TBS. But they also want we're talking about sports, but this would make it, a global entertainment juggernaut too, acquiring the whole company if they get the Warner Brothers studio and HBO Max. But we're talking about sports and they would be the merger of these two companies, I would posit, would have a greater live sports TV rights portfolio than Disney, ESPN, ABC.
Okay, so let's start stacking that up and listen to sports here. And it's a dynamic I didn't anticipate, and maybe I should have, that there are some people in the world that are just so rich that it tilts the field of play and entertainment. I was so focused on how entertainment was not nearly as profitable as it used to be with the old cable bundle in the United States that I neglected to notice that maybe somebody would buy up properties in part due to a business play, but they could afford to be very loose in terms of profitability. And David Ellison, as the scion of the fortune of one of the richest men on earth, he's just playing. He's playing with more. He has more at his disposal than Disney might have, than they might be willing to part with, I should
And
say.
it's
So
also, it's a unified family, clear like person in charge. David Ellison's going to be in charge of Paramount for the rest. He's about our age, so he's going to be presumably for the rest of like our lives. It's not like he can get ousted from it by anybody like Bob Iger could at
mm,
Disney. I mean, I don't know who could oust him, but
yeah. It's
but
like
he
he's the owner. It's like he's the owner of an NBA team or inherited an NBA team from his dad. It's almost that dynamic. Now, two things I forgot to say to people: that you can raise your hand and ask a question. I sometimes neglect to mention that. And then the second thing is, let's list these properties. I hear Paramount, as said in the chat by Jack Long, has been killing it with soccer.
Yeah,
What
so
are they amassing?
they've got Champions League in the United States today or yesterday. They finalized a deal to carry Champions League in like the five biggest countries in Europe: UK, France, Italy, Spain, Germany. Um, they have they outbid ESPN for UFC rights. So all of UFC is going to Paramount beginning in January. They're also adding Zuffa Boxing, which is a joint venture between TKO and Saudi official Turki Al Sheikh. So CBS
You didn't
has
just hold that up in your head, man. Hey, you could have been making that up. I would not have known. Sorry, continue.
So,
Yes.
CBS has the NFL, obviously. They've got Big Ten football and basketball. They have um, they've got the Masters, they have the PGA Championship, they have a bunch of PGA Tour events, and then with WBD, they have the whole NCAA basketball tournament. Then WBD on its own has Big 12 football and basketball. They've got a big MLB package where they've got Tuesday nights in the regular season, and then in the playoffs, they've got a divisional series and a championship series. They've got some NASCAR. They have AEW wrestling. They have unrivaled basketball. They have Big East basketball, and they have last one I had something else in my head.
I
They
mean, it
have
was an impressive list
the
that you've
French
rattled
Open.
off. Oh,
So
yeah.
um,
Which I like that you called it the French Open. I don't want to be bullied into calling it Roland Garros or however I'm
right,
supposed to pronounce
the
that.
French
It was the
Open.
it was the French Open when I was a kid. I don't like all this talk about how I'm supposed to pronounce it that way. And then I'm supposed to call the British Open in golf the Open. I don't
No,
like any of this, but you were saying.
yeah. So you add all this up here. They basically have their hand in everything except for the NBA, the SEC, and the Olympics.
Well, that might bring us to our next topic right here, Ryan, which is the NBA back?
Well,
Those are
do we want to go through what ESPN has too and
yes,
see
yes. Let's
like
tease
what's
that.
bigger?
We're gonna tease whether the NBA is back or whether they're doing the thing they do in the early season where they act like they're back and then we learn later on. But let's go and compare. Yes,
Yeah, so
ESPN's.
ESPN has they have an NFL package, obviously, although I think CBS is a little bigger because CBS has more inventory of games that like in those Sunday regional windows, and they
Mm,
also have they're higher watched, like especially the late Sunday afternoon window than Monday Night Football. But um ESPN has exclusive rights to the SEC and the ACC. Those are big. They've got the NBA, which includes the finals, although they have less NBA inventory than they did before. And so that's
mm,
kind of also like an aside is, Paramount is in territorial expansion mode. And ESPN got out of the Big Ten. They downsized in the NBA. They are downsizing in MLB, and they got outbid for UFC. So we haven't seen like a world where ESPN loses stuff that they want. And
mm.
that's what's kind of been the new reality over the last few years.
Yeah, they're in a bit of a retreat, it would seem. Now, I don't know if they're going to lose it. I don't know if they're going to lose their brand appeal to millennials such as ourselves and the older generations. It's just ESPN is something you have to have. We have that locked in, we have that wired in. I don't know if that fades away in the same way that when there's some horrific thing that happens or horrible news story, people older than ourselves go, turn on CNN. Even though CNN in many ways has been irrelevant, it still carries that branding. I don't know if
CNN, part of this Paramount acquisition, there's all sorts of like impact for there too. There's already been like stories that like Trump has been like telling Larry Ellison like, "Hey, fire this anchor. I don't like her." If it goes through, I don't mean to laugh.
I know I don't want to
Hard
be
not to laugh.
glib. It's sort of absurd, but it's not what you would want in a first world country, I would say. But I also, anyway, you were saying, yes,
It's not funny, but it is kind of funny. The
everything with Trump is kind of like that. Good, but continue. Yes.
Yeah, so Paramount's in this territorial expansion mode. And so then another like looming factor in this that I think we have to discuss is there was a Variety report that said that Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar's sovereign wealth funds would be involved in this Paramount bid for WBD. But then Paramount came out and said that that report is categorically inaccurate. So this golf money stuff though, there's like a lots of like different ways it's like tricky to talk about because like some
Mm,
of the officials of these countries could like invest in things in like with their personal wealth, and then it's really difficult to know kind of where the country ends and the individual begins. So I don't know, I don't have any reporting suggesting that they are involved or they're not involved other than like what's been out there. But I
mhm.
will say like there if like let's say if these three nations, whether it's their national funds or like royals within the countries, are invested in this, it gives them just like an unbelievable firepower to just
Yeah.
get whatever sports they want, right?
Yeah.
So like they effectively have unlimited money.
I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I do wonder for all the negative coverage that you see of ESPN. I think some of that negativity is actually related to its pervasiveness and dominance. People tend to resent you when they need you and they feel like you're not doing everything they want you to do. This feels a little bit like the beginning of the end. Is that an overread? I mean,
The
this is
beginning of
ultimately
the end
going to
of
be what,
ESPN.
yeah, as
Well, I
just
mean,
this
like,
dominant
what if
force in
Apple
life.
buys Disney? Then all of a sudden they have more firepower than the Gulfs. So I don't know.
Mm,
They could be they could be a big chess piece in this whatever war we're in for like global tech supremacy. And so I mean, I don't know that Disney and ESPN, like I don't know that Disney continues to own ESPN forever, or like Disney could get swallowed whole by one of these tech companies, or ESPN could. So there's like lots of different possibilities from here. But if you're looking at a world where ESPN is competing with all of like these places as like a standalone and it doesn't become part of something bigger than itself, then I wouldn't say they're gonna die or anything, but
no.
it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, that their run of unquestioned dominance is starting to be in question.
Yeah. And they've been more resistant to that dominance fading than a lot of legacy brands. But I see it maybe akin to something like the New Yorker, which occupied a particular place and has been diminished, and it's still a brand that carries some weight. And ESPN might be one of those properties. This will not prevent me, though, from excerpting this clip and putting a big all caps headline, the beginning of the end for ESPN.
Uh,
Your nuanced response to that will
but
not prevent me from doing that.
we all have to use our windows to get people into the shop.
We do. 1 second as I talk, I'm pouring this. I've been criticized by Dom Imrangula of Stratechery for. Do you have an opinion on this? I know this isn't pertinent to our conversation. Is it unprofessional on a live stream to be drinking out of a plastic cup versus a mug? I've been told it's unprofessional. And so midstream, I'm
Uh,
trying to do that, Ryan.
Well, if that is if that's like your worst blemish, then you're
If
the
only.
professionalism. I mean, I think that there are lots of things that professional media and audio executives could look at our show and figure out a way to make it a little less rough around the edges. Like, but
If only that was my only blemish, which I'm sure is something that Adam Silver of the NBA often thinks to himself. And that brings us to our next topic. I want an excerpt of the awful announcing story on NBA ratings. And I want to talk
well,
about what.
they got that from Sports Media Watch. Let's give credit where it's
Okay. Okay. Sports Media Watch, which does that scut work, and I apologize. But that's what we got right now. We got the
okay.
awful announcing screenshot, so we'll roll with it because people are hitting me up. People are asking me about this, Ryan. The numbers, they're eye popping. These numbers that the ESPN has, I believe it's something like a 35% leap in viewership right now. But I would submit it to you that this has become a pattern for the NBA where in the beginning of a season, there will be a press release or some sort of study that shows us a boost coming in this era of the big data panel, Nielsen, where you can count more streaming viewers. And there's this boost out there. And then by the time we get to the conference finals, and then by the time we get to the NBA finals, it usually peters out. And we learned the same lesson we've known for about a half decade, which is about half the audience for the big games has fled. Is it different now? Is the NBA back? Is having these new rights holders, is that giving it a boost? What say you?
It is giving it a boost, but I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. Like, I don't think the NBA is necessarily 30% more popular than it was this time last year. There's other factors. But I do think there is some more juice. The biggest difference is replacing TNT with NBC. So those Tuesday night NBC games are distributed to 15 million more homes. The NBC production is really crisp. During the games. I mean, their studio show is kind of boring. It's I don't want to be mean, but I watched it the other day. They're just reading notes from their like pads and like not really having a conversation. But the games themselves with like Tarico and Noah Eagle and the analysts they have are good. Their picture is apparently better than everybody else's. And just beyond like just the distribution of the fact that it's in more homes than TNT is, it's also in the consciousness of, the boomers like me who still have the cable package. You have like probably 8 channels that you go to, and NBC is still one for a lot of people, whether it's the sports they have every night or entertainment programming like The Voice or local news. So NBC is just a much more relevant platform than TNT is in the year 2025. So that's makes a
Oh,
difference. But where
in the year always, in the year forever. Not to interject. I mean, I think I haven't dug into the nitty gritty, but as you say, just being on another network channel is going to give you a boost of viewership. And I hate to be a hater and myth bust this, but if you and I were on NBC in prime time, we might be spotted a million viewers, and that's not really us doing anything in particular. So that's a reason to perhaps be on network TV is that you get more people watching, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the growth of your sport. It more reflects, at least I think, that you are on a network channel as opposed to a dying cable channel. Or am I
Yeah,
wrong?
no, that's all true. But one thing I will say, and I'll give the NBA and Amazon credit for this, that Sports Media Watch story indicated that these Friday night Amazon games are doing better than
Oh,
ESPN was a year ago. And so I
wow.
understand that they've changed the way that they count a little bit, but that's pretty impressive because Amazon is not a destination where you have to go there on purpose to find the NBA.
Wait, right. Is this the beginning of the end for ESPN that this is happening?
I mean this is a pretty like Monday Thursday night football does not outrate Monday night football. So
Mm.
the fact that Amazon year over year it's like that you can even like credibly say there are times, let alone in totality, that it's beating ESPN last year. I
Mm-hmm.
would like to look at all of like the data on this, but like maybe they're getting better games or whatever. But that's the part of it where the NBA could really like pat themselves on the back because that's not something that I would have expected, quite frankly.
I'll say this much. I've enjoyed the product on Amazon. I don't have any way to measure crispiness of broadcast, but the broadcast is very crisp visually. And with their studio show, it's a critical smash. People seem to love that studio show. I don't know how much that adds to it, but that's something that I've noticed. And good is good. I'm going to break news with that. Good is good. Good game production does lead to better results. So I think that's something at least they've done well, even if I don't buy the hype of increased popularity necessarily. Now, Titonia World, Giannis superfan says replacing LeBron with not LeBron might be what we attribute this boost in viewership
No,
to.
I wouldn't say that.
I think he's being cheeky. I think LeBron is still a force with the normie. I think a Laker game with LeBron and Luca is going to draw more interest. But there is
It
this
might be
other
really good
sense.
too.
Yeah. Well, he was playing maybe more of a supplementary role. But I think there is this sense, though, that LeBron has cast a bit of a pall over this epoch of the NBA. And even if a game without LeBron is less watched than the game with LeBron, I do sympathize with the sense that he's been dragging down the overall brand with just some insufferable, ineffable quality he's had over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think that that's fair. I mean, he's annoying.
Yeah.
And so his tweets are annoying. When he gives interviews, he's annoying. He's just so conceited and seemingly like doesn't like really take any pains to hide it that
Mm.
it's annoying. I said that word three
No,
times.
it is the word to isolate because there was a period of time when people were saying it was the politics and he's woke and that repels people. And there was something to it, but it was even beyond the politics. He could be talking about anything. And there's just something about him. He's not a bad guy. He doesn't do terrible things. His career has been a miraculous success. In many ways, he's handled himself well. But it's a little similar to Alex Rodriguez, where this isn't a bad guy, but just the more exposure we get, the less we want it. Uh-oh. I cannot hear Ryan. Am I the
Oh,
only
sorry
one?
about that. My dog was whining, and I muted my mic, and he's still whining, and now it's my turn to speak. But
Okay.
the yeah, I wouldn't put his absence on in like terms of driving like the positive overall number at all, as annoying as I may find him. But I also wanted to get into this story. So you mentioned the Amazon show and how that's been critically acclaimed, and on that show it's been like revelatory that they're actually mainly talking basketball on it. They aren't talking
Uh,
about whatever like
who's Giannis going to sign with? When is he
yeah, they're
getting out of
not talking
Milwaukee?
about like hypothetical fake transactions or feuds that any of the co-hosts may or may not have with any of the talents. And so it is like people have like found it refreshing in that way. I've seen a lot of praise for Blake Griffin, and so that kind of gets us to Stephen A. Smith no
Mm.
longer being on
Oh,
ESPN's NBA Countdown as a fixture.
we've got an example of a reason why they might not want him on that broadcast, why the NBA might be sick of Stephen A. Let's call that up. Let's call up the Stephen A. Smith clip that I've added to the elements where he is not talking about the NBA, but instead the NFL. Drum
This
roll.
kid, he can run it, he's tough, he's poised, and he's absolutely dynamic in the pass game. And this team under Mike Vrabel can win the AFC Championship.
He's also a liar. He's also a liar. First of all, let me tell you, it's not to brag. Listen, Pardon the Interruption is the #1 show on ESPN spanning 20 plus decades. First
20
Take is the #1 morning show, 13 years and counting. April will be 14 years. Don't tell me you an athlete and you don't know that. Don't tell me you an athlete and you don't know that Cam Newton ain't on the show. You're lying. That's #1. #2, I'm going to take it to a more serious tone with that because I get where you're coming from, RC, and I don't disagree with you. But how about athletes looking out for athletes? I remember when there was a time when it was so much media that we were saying, athletes, once you're not playing anymore because of your expertise, y'all should be on TV. The opportunity should be there. One of the problems sitting here right in front of y'all, right?
Okay,
This
we
First
can cut
Take.
the clip. I think we got the
There's
basic
nothing.
gist of things. We're going to start watching a full episode of First Take. Yes, that's Stephen A. Smith, I believe, calling out ascending NFL superstar quarterback Drake May for not knowing enough about ESPN and its popularity. Very bizarre. I think we can circle back, as they say, to the specific topic of that. But let's talk about the NBA component
Yeah, we will
where
circle back to that. But yeah,
we will circle back. But yeah, I think the NBA doesn't want that. That's what the NBA doesn't want. And that's something that I support Adam Silver on. And that's something I support the NBA on. I think that's very fair to not want that kind of coverage and to see it as something that is compromising their brand.
Now you get it sometimes from inside the NBA, but it's a little bit more charming and at least say like we're basketball players. But it's like, well, why can Shaq do that or Barkley do that, but Stephen A can't? And I don't know. There's different rules for different people. I'm sorry. And so look, I'm not gonna say like that the NBA yanked Stephen A from that show. I think when he was negotiating his deal, which was 5 years, over $100 million with ESPN, it was really framed even at the time. We're gonna focus on First Take. Like your attention's been elsewhere. There was also supposed to be some more NFL countdown stuff that he was going to be doing, but I think he's only been on there once this year. So I'm a little bit curious if anything changed or he's like it was kind of backloaded in the season or what. But I think that there are like several things can be true. I think that ESPN wanted to fortify First Take. I think that once ESPN got inside the NBA, Stephen A observed, okay, Countdown is the queer B show now. I don't want to associate with the B show. I live in New York. I don't want to fly to LA and back every week to be on the B show. I think that's probably true. And I think it's probably true that the NBA didn't want stuff like that clip on their bumper programming. And so all of those things. And so now what we've got is a countdown where, I mean, Windhorse basically replaced Stephen A as the like non-athlete guy who gets to have opinions on the show. And you when you saw it on Wednesday, it was more kind of like basketball talk. It looked a lot more like Amazon's show that it's been acclaimed did than it has looked like past incarnations of Countdown in recent years. And so it's kind of a multivariable equation.
And that makes sense. And I think it speaks to a change in the economy and content dynamics with cable television leading to where we are right now. Because the way it was in the past was that ESPN, still riding that cable bundle, they had these live sports and they could use that as fodder for this profitable enterprise of these talk shows, these morning shows that didn't take a lot to put on. And a lot of the profitability was really driven by having the live sports, but also feeding that into these other shows. And as those other shows get less relevant, less important, outcompeted by YouTube, it elevates the importance of the live product. And then you start looking at it and you start going, wait a second, whatever Stephen A is doing on First Take, that's more of a withdrawal than an investment. That's a withdrawal from this product of the game. And that's not an investment in propping up the game. And as the game gets more important relative to that venture, I think a lot of people, not just Adam Silver, not just commissioners, are going, what the hell? This isn't making sense as a model. It's not making sense as a model for you guys to sully our games, the most important property, in service of just seeking and looking for engagement that is diminishing by the day. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, I think that's all true. And then, like, speaking of diminishing by the day, look, ESPN's done a lot of great things, and we've talked about them. Getting Buck and Aikman, getting into the Super Bowl rotation, bringing it inside the NBA. But, I don't think that ESPN is as relevant with the 25-year-old quarterback as it was when we were 25 years old. Like Drake May is probably more likely to see a clip from Pardon My Take than First Take. I think that like if you're looking at like who's the number one show with 25-year-old white men, Pardon My Take's probably ahead of a lot of ESPN programming in that demographic.
I'm just going off my own household, the focus group of one. My son has no conception of what television is. Television does not exist as a concept. And I don't think he's alone. We have a television, but that is merely a portal to the online universe that contains content from Netflix and from YouTube. And occasionally a Warriors game appears on the television, but he doesn't have a conception of it. I've been on TV before. I've told him about it. He does not care. But if I tell him I'm on a YouTube show talking with you and it has however many people watching it, that's far more interesting to him. And he's further along the curve than people in their 20s, but I think it's similar where they don't have that background we have with it. They don't have that background with having grown up and seeing Mike and Tony debate the issues of the day. That's just not something.
Yeah, or like Dan and Keith on Sports Center or any number of those anchors.
They don't have that.
It's not the same at all. No,
It's
they're watching by and large short form clips, although there is, as we talked about before, the K-pop Demon Hunters can come along on Netflix and then all of a sudden they have an attention span and they want to watch something that's over an hour long over and over and over. So there is like a way to pierce this alleged lack of attention span in young kids, but sports talk programming on ESPN, at least in my household, has not accomplished that.
Jack Long says YouTube long form videos are also pretty popular. Do we do a K-pop Demon Hunter sidebar? I don't know
Yeah,
if
I
we
think we
do.
got to. I think that's why people tune in.
Okay, I think we might have to if we're talking about the Mount Rushmore and just looking at the popularity. You guys can perhaps ask a question or raise your hands if you wish to be in person rather than in the chat. I'm staggered by it. I know we're a few months in this phenomenon, but I was recently, because I'm in the Bay Area and everybody else, all the other dads I encounter work in tech in some capacity. And so I was talking to one of the dads who works at Netflix, and he was saying the rewatchability of K-pop Demon Hunters is just insane. It's unlike anything we've seen at the company. People watch it once and they keep watching it again and again. It's like back in the day when Titanic was this massive hit in 1997, I believe, and young girls were just going back to the theater again and again. But it's if they had the capacity to do that just by clicking a button. And I look at it and I'm going, why? What is this? Why is this the biggest thing to have ever existed? You could never have anticipated it. If I were to pitch to you a year ago, hey, what about a kids movie? And it's about K-pop stars hunting demons. And that's what it's about. And it's a musical. Would you have thought that this would be the number one most popular thing in America?
I wouldn't have dismissed it out of hand, actually. But
Yeah. Yeah, it
um,
sounds kind of cool.
I mean, I don't know that I would have bet my life on it, but I wouldn't have bet my life that it wouldn't. You know, this might be the first time that this has happened with Netflix, but it's the fourth time it's happened in our household, fifth maybe,
Mm.
of like the kids wanting to watch something over and over and over. The first one was this Curious George movie where like they make off with an elephant or
Oh,
something.
I've
I
seen
forget
that.
it, that one.
Great
My
one.
little one would just say, my oldest would, when she was a little one, would just say, George Elephant, George Elephant, George Elephant. And the non-parents right now are just like bored out of their mind. But
Mm.
the other ones were the Paw Patrol movie, which is actually pretty good, Encanto,
And
and
then
then
First Take is the fourth. Yes, that's the fourth one.
actually the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. My kids were into that one for a while.
Yeah.
So I've seen this happen, like as I said, 4 or 5 times with a movie and the kids, but this is one where it seems, and Paw Patrol was like this too, where all the kids in daycare were wearing Paw Patrol stuff, but um with K-pop Demon Hunters, I mean, I went to when my kids dressed up as them for Halloween, and you go to the school to drop them off on Halloween, and every third girl is a K-pop demon hunter. And so
Yeah.
the scale of this cultural phenomenon, it is nice that it shows you that like it's still possible in this like fragmented world. But yeah, I mean it really is just a rocket ship.
It is a little like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, now that I think about it, because there's a darkness and weirdness to it. And kids like that because at some level they think they're watching something a little inappropriate. It's effectively a zombie movie in many respects. And
Yes.
it's orthogonal to the cultural
Do
products we
not mess
have.
with their fans, though.
No, you don't. Yeah, they're gonna make it hurt. It's orthogonal to, it's like an American animated musical, but it's a little bit different, and that gives it its juice. And it's not this sense of the cookie cutter thing we're always getting. It just feels fresh.
It
Jack
also,
Long,
it's not like doing any type of like political messaging either.
there's that as well. And I don't even know how to think about the politics and the gender politics of it, because in some ways the main characters are girl bosses, in other ways they're very girly. And whatever it is, it's not something I feel as though Disney would make for us. And I can't
No.
say that it's anti-feminist or pro-feminist. I just know that the current big corporations wouldn't make that kind of thing for us, or at least traditionally. And
Well, I don't
that,
think like Netflix even like thought it was going to be big because there was like a Wall Street Journal story about how all the parents were panicking because there was no inventory of the costumes, and so they were having to kind of do them themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know where you buy a thing like that. And it's pretty elaborate costumes as well. Jack Long has a question. I don't know if it's about who his favorite character is, if he's, a fan of Genu, if he's a fan of Mira, or if it's something more pertinent to sports media. We shall see. Jack, what you got for us?
Yeah. So my question with the K-pop Demon Hunters, and again, I mean I have two nephews and a niece, and they're a little too young for it right now. But is Korea the like when I was growing up, Japan was like all, I'm 35, so I was like 7, 8 years old when Pokemon came out. So like Japan was always like the cool Asian country. Is Korea this generation's cool Asian country?
Yes.
I think so, but I also don't know. I mean, I'm looking at it from the perspective of my 7-year-old. And so I don't know if he's even has a conception of what these places are. He just knows that Japan is where Pokemon comes from, and this has something to do with Korea. But I don't know if he thinks about it that much. Maybe Ryan's kids have a different perspective on it.
No,
I don't
it's
know.
not like they've asked to go to Korea or anything. So I don't know if it's quite like that Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z,
Yeah.
anime, like where it all hit at once. I don't think it's as much like that. Although I will say it does seem like K-pop is pretty big and it's not just the Demon Hunters.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I'm going to talk extemporaneously about race and class, which is always great when you're talking off the top of your head. There is something interesting about the cultural cross currents with it, because if you live in, say, the Bay Area suburbs, which are not representative of the country writ large, but are representative, I guess, of an influential cohort, a high income cohort on the coast, there's just a lot of cross pollination between Asian families and white families. And it's almost like they're all sharing the same broader culture, including the kids who are not of those backgrounds. And so it feels like something like this can become popular in a way that wouldn't have happened in the 90s. And it's not just a matter of technology and exposure. There's also just a story of how the United States is changing. And I think that's also an aspect of it.
I don't
Maybe I'm
know because
overthinking it.
I mean, to Jack's point, Pokemon took over what
Don't
30.
you dare undermine my deeply pretentious point, Ryan. That's not cool. But yeah, it's a fair counterpoint. Let's see. Patrick Myers says, my kids have no concept about the Koreanness of the movie. Fish don't know water is wet. Yeah, it's almost like we're so Korean right now that we don't even have a sense of how Korean we are. That's how dominant South Korea has been. The kids are super into the 38th parallel, Heartbreak Ridge on repeat. And as Anthony Mays says, and it is true in my house, Pokemon still going strong, Ryan. It's
Yeah,
perpetual
true,
Pokemon is.
true in our household too.
Should we get into how the Eagles hate Jalen Hurts? Because I'm
Yes.
writing about this right now, and I'm fascinated about this. And I mean, you've got an interesting spin on the story. I want your spin on this, that the NFL somehow benefits from this sort of acrimony and discord. And then I want a clip of Jordan Mailata, star tackle on the Eagles, I would say meekly damning with faint defense his quarterback. So let's have you give your take first, and then Jordan Mailata.
Yeah, so for the last couple weeks, and honestly, even dating back to last season when he was reading a book about on the sidelines while he wasn't getting targeted, AJ Brown has clearly been dissatisfied with his role in the Eagles offense. He's this immensely talented receiver. He'll go games at a time without even getting targeted, let alone having catches. I was at one of them a week and a half ago in Green Bay, and I was there. My father-in-law, an Eagles fan, and in the second half, we're like, have they thrown to AJ Brown at all? And when you're at a game, I mean, there's a lot of things that suck about being at an NFL game, like these endless breaks. And then if you have to go to the bathroom, you're like stuck behind someone who takes forever. But one of the good parts about going to these games is that you can like just isolate your viewing on one or two players on the field. And so you get to watch AJ Brown run wind sprints with nothing coming his way for 45 minutes at a time and get a sense of like, is he just getting double teamed and blanketed, or like what's going on? Why aren't they even looking at him? And so he is just been making veiled comments about how the offense doesn't work. I don't believe that he's like named Jalen Hurts by name, but it's pretty clear that he is unhappy with the quarterback play on the team. And there's been 1,000 times where this has happened with a wide receiver, but this team is the defending Super Bowl champions and they're 8-2. And so you would think like a lot, like even diva wide receivers would know, look, like, we're winning. I gotta shut up until we lose. But he just keeps doing it after wins. And so this week there was like another clip that circulated where a reporter in Philadelphia, and by the way, the Philadelphia reporters deserve a lot of credit. Like the Philadelphia reporters are who people think the New York reporters are. They will ask very sharp questions to these athletes. So like, yeah, they're 8-2, and the reporter is saying to AJ Brown, like, there are a lot of people that don't think you're the same caliber of player you once were. What do you say to that? And he's like, and his answer was basically like, hey, Saquon Barkley's production is down too. As he
Yeah, so I
dropped
guess I guess Saquon ain't the same guy. It was God. It's just sharp out there. It's nasty out there. But you were saying,
yeah, so I mean, I in addition to the fact that it's just like weird that this is happening on an 8-2 defending Super Bowl champion team, I think that this really helps the NFL, these types of stories, because you don't see it as much in the NBA where a player is like in the locker room and criticizing it. Like the way it happens in the NBA is we get like a Yahoo Sports story that LaMelo Ball is unhappy with his role. We don't get LaMelo Ball saying that to five different reporters in the locker room or anything. And um it just there's just like a never-ending flow of content during an NFL season that you can react to and makes the games themselves more interesting. And I think like because this is happening with the Eagles, it's going to increase how much I pay attention to their games. And I think that it's just it's a very NFL thing. You don't see it in MLB, you don't see it in the NBA. And you got these disgruntled players just speaking candidly.
yeah, in the NBA, they do the weird thing of hating a guy and then attacking. They attack the outside world for noticing, which maybe you could say that's more honorable because they're sticking up for their teammate. I'm thinking of a young player in particular on Golden State. I think people might be able to read between the lines of who I'm talking about. But to what you're saying, it reminds me of that. It's a quote attributed to Otto von Bismarck. I don't know if he said it. I don't know if anybody said anything these days. There are a million Churchill quotes that he didn't say, but it's God has a special providence for fools, drunkards, and the United States of America. And one of my readers said you could substitute NFL in there because there are things that happen in the NFL that make us go, man, that's why I love the NFL. But if those things happened in the NBA or maybe another sport, we would go, psh, This is exactly why I hate the NBA. I mean, look at these selfish players. They don't even care about winning. They just care about their numbers. I
Yeah,
don't
they
want to
saw
hear about
someone on
this.
like the Thunder doing this, and
Yeah.
they are ripping Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. So like that's another thing in the NBA is the salaries are slotted, and so the best and the second best player on each team are some in often
Mm.
cases making like similar amounts of money, and like even the role players, like you'll see some interchangeable widget you've never heard of and he's making 30 million over a year for four, it's like signs a 4 year
Yeah.
$120 million deal, and you're like, I don't think I would recognize that guy if he was like walking down my street wearing his jersey. And so in the NFL though, the salary cap really creates a caste system within the locker room, and these quarterbacks make 50 to 60 million dollars, and then the most a receiver can hope to make is like 40. But you're really competing with your own teammates for these huge deals in a way that isn't necessarily true in the NBA, because you might end up switching cities in the NBA, but the NFL has the franchise tag. And so if you're a first round pick and they hit you with the 5th year option and then franchise tag you twice, it could be 7 years until you're a free agent. And so it's just like a much different system. And I think that the Eagles, they might interpret that like Jalen Hurts is making all this money and he doesn't deserve it. But I get it. I get that they're not moving the ball, but I don't think you can like put a price on the quality of him where if you get to 3rd and 2, it's a first down. No other team has that advantage. And you can say, oh, it's the blocking, but you see him like wiggle around that hole, and you imagine the physical pain that he must endure to pick up that 1 or 2 yards at a time. And I don't know. I think that they're underrating that element of his game at the very least.
It's quite possible they are. Thomas J says when the sports conflict is between the players, it is good for interest. Want to see the dynamics. When the conflict is more player versus franchise, wanting to jump ship, it is player attacking or seeking to leave my team, which is just annoying and a bummer. I think there's something to that. And I think the Eagles are an odd case, especially relative to the NBA, where it's so much about the management. It's so much about the executive. The coach seems replaceable. They won a Super Bowl with a coach, got rid of that coach. They won another Super Bowl. The coach they have doesn't seem to have a lot of power. He seems like a functionary for Howie Roseman. And the quarterback doesn't seem to be all that important either. They've replaced quarterbacks in Philadelphia. It's really more about the team overall. And that gives this sort of conflict a different flavor. Now, the players seem very sick of Jalen Hurts. My God, do they seem sick of Jalen Hurts? I am shocked by the extent they are. I am shocked by the lack of defense they have for him. I want to play this because this floored me from Jordan Mailata. This is an offensive lineman. Your job is to protect your quarterback in all respects, not just on the field. When it was brought up to him that Hurts is getting trashed in the media, I expected something fiery. Let's play this clip from House of Strauss friend Spike Eskin talking to Jordan Mailata. If it is indeed the clip, I think it is.
Report that came out last night from Derek Gunn.
That's Spike.
Longtime Eagles reporter.
Heard about it.
Yeah, that just in case anybody hasn't heard, that there were many people in the building were frustrated with Jalen, and that there were some limitations to what he was doing, that he was going out playing the way that he wanted, so on and so forth. Have you noticed any frustrations with Jalen, his way in or out of the building, or his performance?
I guess we're watching two different clips, two different films. I can't speak on what Derek's saying. If that's what he's saying, I'm not going to sit here and tell him, hey, how dare you?
Sure.
Hey, he's how long has he been part of the media?
G-Gun?
Long time?
Oh,
yeah, he's
a couple of decades.
Not gonna lie, he's like the Mount Rushmore of Eagles.
So I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, that's what he sees.
Well,
I don't see it. I know how much work Jalen puts into this, and so I just have to. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I don't know how to address that.
Sure.
I'll be honest. I don't know how to address that.
Well, that aside, I guess my question would also be, I guess really to both you guys.
Okay. I think we get the sense. We can pull the clip. Media. This is what I'm writing about. Media literacy is what I call it, because I see a lot of Eagles fans attacking any media members, attacking any media figures like Derek Gunn, for instance, for saying that behind the scenes there's discord and the players have issues with Jalen and perhaps his inability to get through progressions and do certain plays. And if it weren't true, you would see such a defense. You would see such a defense, passionate defense. You know what it is. You know what's happening when you see stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say that this is just so stunning to me, and I can't believe that it's happening, but I think it mirrors what we used to see with the Seahawks and Russell Wilson, where the defense thought that they were responsible for this. And, Wilson was kind of similar to Jalen Hurts in that he would struggle for these long swaths of time, but then in crunch time, just magically pick up some of these first downs with his legs and get them out of trouble and come through when he absolutely needed to. But if you're, a player on the defense who's playing great the whole game and keeping your team in the game for long enough for him to finally pull a rabbit out of the hat, you might see it a little bit differently from, some guy on his couch who just watches a lot of football.
It is crazy when you look back, when you take a step back from it, 30,000 foot view. This is the reigning Super Bowl MVP. This is the leading team in the NFC. As you said, they're 8-2. And
beating good teams. If you had to pick anyone to come out of the NFC, it should be them.
Yeah. They're I guess favored to win the Super Bowl. I haven't checked the odds, but that would be my assumption. And his teammates are trashing him. It's not even just superficially that the statistics are all that bad. They've struggled to score. They scored only 16 points the last 2 games. But I mean, generally speaking, a quarterback of the stature, there's a sense that, hey, you have down games, you have bad games, and we'll get it together. Instead, it appears that the offense has this dynamic like the defense, that we've got this great running game, but our quarterback is somebody we're dragging around and he's an albatross. And so it's sort of amusing for me to follow from afar, because I can tell. Plus, I just hear I hear rumors through the grapevine. I don't cover the NFL, but I have a lot of friends in NFL media, and it's worse even behind the scenes versus what's being reported. And yet you're always going to have that fan contingent because you've got an emotional attachment to Jalen Hurts, and you've been defending him against other fan bases trashing him, and he wins the Super Bowl. And he finishes 19th in the NFL top 100. And so now you're dug in that this is all some vast media conspiracy, and any reporter saying anything is clickbait. It ain't clickbait. I mean, that's real. That's as real as it gets.
Yeah, they're going after Derek Gunn, and they've been going after Diana Rossini. And, there is this tribal aspect of fans that just think that the reporters are blocking the aggregate mission of winning, as opposed to recognizing that their job isn't to help the team win. It's to tell the truth about what's happening and then let the chips fall where they may. We're getting a few comments in the chat. When we were talking about how good they are and 8-2 defending Super Bowl champions, Anthony Mays says because of their defense, which Howie Roseman fixed by adding Jalen Phillips. And then Thomas says that on FanDuel right now, the favorites to win the Super Bowl are the Rams and the Eagles, both at plus 500, followed by the Colts and the Chiefs, which are plus 1,000. That means 5-1 and 10-1 for anyone who doesn't spend.
Fourth? Oh my God, that's
third, tied for third. I mean, that does make sense because they're in the Super Bowl every year and they win it half the time. So if you can get them at 10-1,
5-5, they're not going to win their division. I just don't look. I suppose it's possible, But to make that the third, I look, I can't short that. I can't short that scenario. There's no market where I can.
Yes, there is Kalshi, but
Oh yeah, I can short it. Well, it could happen. It could conceivably
I don't
happen.
think I don't think you want to put up the collateral to like bet $10 to win one that they're not going to win the Super Bowl. You might let the books take those bets. Teutonia World, let's go.
Yeah, Teutonia World. Let's hear it.
So to
Fancy.
mix it up,
This is a nice outfit.
yes, sir. Yeah, funeral in a minute, in 5 minutes. So real quick on the pack, I'd like to for Glass-Steagall. Is it just as simple as the Packers receivers need to catch balls? There's a lot of I'm deep into the podcast weeds on this week that there's a lot of thought that Love's forcing it to Dobbs too much, and really Dobbs, whether he catches balls or not, is simply we'd be better served forcing it more to Golden and some of Watson's back. And but scale of 1 to 10, what's your feeling on the Packers? Can we make a late run, or is it just kind of already doomed?
I think that it's doomed because I think that they're too dumb to win 3 or 4 straight playoff games against good teams. They could beat anybody, they can lose to anybody. They have had drops. There's like a big split right now, Ethan. I don't know if you've seen this, but the national media, like the talking heads who are watching Red Zone, watching all the games, they think Jordan Love is kind of mid.
I am very into this topic. I am shocked we're talking about it, but I'm obsessed with this topic that the advanced stats say Jordan Love great, and the conversation about him, Jordan Love sucks. And I didn't know we'd be discussing this. We usually don't get into the nitty gritty of NFL, but this is a topic I am interested in, Ryan. So
yeah,
continue.
so the talking heads think that he's mid. The advanced stats and the Packers fans. The Packers fans are on the side of the advanced stats. So people watching every down are like Jordan Love is incredible. Like all the national media is just a bunch of haters. And so like you're seeing like random like people with like a cheese emoji like citing EPA and stuff, and it's like it's like a very interesting coalition. And
Uh-oh.
ooh.
Okay, no, you're back. You're back. You're back.
The biggest issue with the Packers is that their offensive line is not very good. They're not creating space for Josh Jacobs, and they're not giving enough time to Jordan Love for these plays to develop. Dobbs probably should be their third receiver after Watson and helping Jaden Reed. Losing Tucker Kraft is a big blow because I think that he was their security blanket. Like in the same way you could love having like Russell Wilson get scamper for a first down. Tucker Kraft, the way that he could just catch the ball and bowl people over, like tire the defense, like physically hurt them, was a massive factor, and I don't know how they replace it. Their defense is pretty good. So I think they can beat anybody. Like any game they go into, they can beat the Rams, they can beat the Eagles, but I don't think that they can beat 4 of these playoff caliber teams in a row. There's a weird thing where Matt LaFleur doesn't totally trust Jordan Love to unleash him. And so they go into these stretches where he's not throwing the ball down the field at all. They run first down, run second down, no one's open on third down, and then they punt. And, Jordan Love, he's shown a proclivity that every 2 or 3 or 4 games, he'll throw just the worst interception you've ever seen. He had that against the Browns where all he had to do was not throw a pick 6 for them to win. Lo and behold.
I thought that interception wasn't the worst one I'd ever seen. I'd have to rewatch it. But do you want to hear my Jordan Love as a normie outsider, my general Jordan Love impressions? My impression is he's got this amazing ability to backpedal, and then throw forward. And it helps him escape a lot of sacks and just make massive plays. And so that's all for the good. But my other impression of him, there's a little bit of a front runner quality in terms of play style, where when it's going well, it's going really well. And when it's not, it's just a car stuck in the mud. And that is my general
Rodgers had that for a while too. I mean, like, so if you look at early Rodgers, like his first, like to throughout the first year as a starter, but like second, third, fourth, fifth year of his starter, he was incredible. But after that, I think that it's had some of these similar characters to Love where he's streaky. And so, you don't, there's so many elements of a football game though. Like I know we just make the quarterback responsible for everything, but we don't know what the play calls are. The drops are just like it's so difficult to
Awful.
create a world where these drops get caught. And he's at last year the Packers led the league in drops or were worst at it or whatever. But and then last week he was really beset by them again. Uh it's I think though this guy Savion Williams is going to be really good. He made a
Yeah.
huge catch against the Giants that really saved that game on Sunday. The
You're
combination
getting so deep in the weeds into like my
Well,
favorite draft
okay, but
prospects of 2025. I mean, I like myself some Savion Williams talk. I just didn't know that.
But to me, that's a perfect example of it where I think what people, my back, quick take, I don't think people realize he seems hyper accurate to me 15 yards and then he kind of thought like the pass to Savion is a pretty good example of kind of a ball, a little bit loopy, maybe hung up in the air a second, a little bit too long. I don't know how he throws jump balls deep, but I would say that his turnovers are decision based and not accuracy based. I think he's really accurate on the line, but yeah, he waits in the pocket. The pocket is collapsing really quick, and that's just. I'm cautiously optimistic, but yeah, we're outside looking in right now.
I like Jordan Love. I'm a Jordan Love fan overall. I also think it's funny. This is the thing we'll close on how unforgiving NFL analysis is. I believe that game you went to, Ryan, you could correct me if I'm wrong, was windy. Was it not cold and windy? The game you went to, the Eagles versus Packers.
it was cold but not super windy. It was windy against the Giants this past week.
Okay, so maybe that's the one I'm thinking about. I just think it's funny how when there are weather conditions out there impacting the field of play, we will have the exact same analysis as we will if it's in a dome. And I see that happen with quarterbacks often where they will play in conditions and there's a sentiment that I respect in a way of no excuses. You get the job done. And I think it's cool that we have that, but it's also it undermines accurate analysis and it can make analysis more hyperbolic when you don't take these things into consideration, that there are weather aspects to performance. That was not the point I thought that I would end on in this particular episode about sports media, but I can't help it. I love the topic of weather in the NFL. Ryan, you're doing a lot of great reporting. As we close out, what should we check out from you?
We had a fun list this week on baseball. I wrote this with Michael McCarthy at Front Office Sports. Just people in baseball who could be primed to get a job. We're gonna see a little bit in media. We're gonna this last year in NBA media was a feeding frenzy with NBC and Amazon coming into the mix. We're gonna see a mini version of that this off season in baseball as NBC gets into Sunday Night Baseball and Netflix gets some games. So we put out a list of people who might be in position to get some of these jobs.
America's second most popular sport, possibly according to Ryan. Thanks so much, man. Great episode. Talk to you later. Thanks,
Good job by
everybody.
you.
Good job by you.